The sea that never lets go. Have you ever stood alone on a deserted beach at dusk and felt the sea watching you? Not just looking, but truly watching, as if something ancient and patient had turned its attention toward the shore and decided you were interesting. Tonight, two girls made that fatal mistake. Olivia and Freya had been inseparable since childhood. Olivia was careful by nature, the sort of girl who checked the weather forecast twice before leaving the house and always carried an extra bottle of water. Freya was the opposite, fearless, restless, the kind of girl who laughed in the face of danger and dared the dark to come closer. On this particular evening, the sky hung bruised and heavy, the color of old wounds, and the sea lay unnaturally still, far too still. There was no wind to speak of, only a strange, waiting quiet that pressed against the ears. "Come on," Freya said, slinging a cheap fishing rod over her shoulder with a grin. "Just 1 hour. We'll catch something massive and cook it right here on the sand. When did we last do something properly reckless together?" Olivia hesitated. The beach stretched empty in every direction. No footprints marked the damp sand. No distant voices drifted on the air. Only the soft, hungry hiss of waves sliding up the shore, as if the water itself were tasting the land, deciding whether it was worth taking. Still, she followed. That is what friends do, even when every instinct whispers that something is wrong. They walked until the final streetlight vanished behind the dark dunes. The sand felt cold and damp beneath their bare feet, clinging to their skin like wet fingers. Freya baited the hooks with raw chicken scraps they had brought in a plastic bag. The first casts arced out into the black water. The lines sank without a sound. Nothing answered. Minutes crawled past. The wind shifted slightly and brought with it a faint, rotten smell, the unmistakable scent of something that had lain too long beneath the water, something soft and swollen and forgotten. Olivia wrinkled her nose but said nothing. Freya only laughed and cast again. Then Freya's rod slammed downward so hard it nearly tore free from her grip. The tip bent almost to the surface. "I've got one," she shouted, laughing with pure delight. "It's enormous." Olivia seized the rod to help. The line dragged with unnatural, relentless strength. Whatever hung on the other end was not fighting like any fish she had ever felt. It was pulling, steady, merciless, straight toward deeper water, as if it had been waiting for this exact moment. "Cut the line," Olivia cried, her voice sharp with sudden fear. But Freya's eyes shone with wild excitement. "No, feel that power. We are not losing this." Near the shore, the water began to darken. Not with seaweed. Something thicker. Something that moved against the current, slow and deliberate. If you stood there in Olivia's place, would you cut the line or keep pulling? They kept pulling. The thing broke the surface with a wet, heavy sound. It was not a fish. A pale, bloated shape the size of a child rose between the waves. Dozens of old rusted hooks were buried deep in its soft, waterlogged flesh, relics of years of lost lines and forgotten anglers. Tangled around it writhed a long black tendril that looked almost like hair, or cable, or living nerve. The tendril still connected to something far larger, waiting patiently below the surface. The instant the girls saw it, the tendril tightened with shocking force. Olivia screamed as the rod was ripped from their hands. The force was instant and brutal. Freya lost her footing and was dragged across the wet sand toward the sea, her heels carving deep trenches. Olivia lunged, caught her friend's wrist, and for 3 terrible seconds they both slid, the sand tearing at their skin. Then the sand collapsed beneath them completely. They were waist-deep before they could even scream properly. The cold punched the air from their lungs like a fist. The tendril coiled around Freya's ankle like a living rope, cold and impossibly strong. Olivia still clung to her hand with both of hers. The seabed dropped away under their feet with shocking speed, the bottom simply vanishing into black nothing. "Don't let go," Freya choked, her voice already half water. But the pull was stronger than any human strength. Olivia's fingers slipped one by one. For one frozen heartbeat, their eyes locked. Pure, absolute terror. And then Freya vanished beneath the black surface with a single choked cry. Olivia dived after her without a second thought. Under the water, the world became pressure and silence and nightmare. The cold was absolute. Olivia saw Freya's pale face only a few meters ahead, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream that released a stream of silver bubbles. The tendril was not alone. More of them rose from the depths, thin, pale, searching blindly through the gloom. One brushed Olivia's arm and left a burning cold that locked her muscles for a terrifying second. She kicked upward with everything she had, lungs screaming for air, and broke the surface, gasping and coughing. The beach already looked impossibly far away, a thin, pale line in the gathering dark. The current was wrong. It was not carrying her out to sea. It was turning her slowly in a wide circle, as if something vast below was revolving like a patient, waiting mouth. If you were in Olivia's place, would you swim for the shore? Or dive back under for your friend? Olivia made her choice without hesitation. She filled her lungs as deeply as she could and went down again. This time she saw everything. Far below in the green-black gloom, something vast and soft was rising. It had no clear shape, only endless folds of pale, waterlogged flesh and hundreds of those same tendrils, each one tipped with an old fishing hook or a fragment of broken net or a length of rusted wire. Caught in its mass were shapes that might once have been people, arms, long, hair that drifted like seaweed. A small child's shoe still laced, all of it swayed gently with the current, as though the sea itself were breathing slowly through the creature. Freya was already half swallowed, her body disappearing into one of the soft folds. Only one arm still reached upward, fingers clawing desperately at the water. Olivia seized that hand with both of hers. The tendril around Freya's leg tightened and wrenched harder. Olivia felt her own shoulder almost tear from its socket. Bubbles burst from her mouth in a panicked rush. Darkness crowded the edges of her vision as her oxygen began to fail. Then a sudden violent jerk from behind. Someone, or something, had seized Olivia's free wrist with surprising strength. She twisted in the water, expecting another tendril. Instead, she saw a second face only inches from her own. Pale, female, eyes completely white and empty, mouth stitched shut with old fishing line that had cut deep into the soft flesh. The dead girl was trying to drag Olivia away from Freya, pulling with desperate urgency as if warning her, as if she already knew from bitter experience. What happens to those who refuse to let go? Olivia's lungs were completely empty now. The choice was no longer hers. The last thing she felt was the cold tendril sliding around her own ankle, gentle at first, then tightening with absolute finality. Above the surface, the beach remained empty and silent. 2 cheap fishing rods lay abandoned on the damp sand, their lines trailing into the water like unanswered questions. The waves kept their quiet, steady rhythm, as if nothing unusual had ever happened there at all. But if you stand on that same stretch of shore at dusk and listen carefully, you can sometimes hear 2 soft voices calling from just beyond the breakers. One is still laughing, light and careless. The other is still screaming, raw and endless. And both are asking the same question. The sea has always asked of those who linger too long, will you come closer, or will you run?